Welcome back to Sin Home Recap. Step into the future as we journey through a Last Sentinel I 2023, a sci-fi masterpiece. Let's unlock its secrets in this exclusive recap. In 2063, the high level of pollution and the increasing human population finally caused the Earth we love to start changing, causing the ice in the North Pole to melt and causing an increase in water levels worldwide. As a result of this event, the Earth now only has 2 continents that have not yet been submerged by water. However, the remaining humans are fighting to seize these 2 continents so they can survive. Meanwhile, in the middle of the sea, located between the 2 continents, there is a military post commonly referred to as the Sentinel. There are 4 soldiers who seem to be starting to feel desperate because they have been there for over 2 years, but no one has come to pick them up. They were supposed to be picked up about 3 months ago, but for some reason they still haven't been able to get news about the war between the 2 continents. Because their stay has exceeded the predetermined time, they slowly began to run out of food stock, which forced them to fish even though they were hit by a fierce storm that often occurred in the sea. There, the commander named Hendrik realized that there was a large wave heading towards them, so he told the technician named Baines to immediately secure the generator, which is the heart of the Sentinel. Then, while Baines was doing his job, he saw some pipes starting to leak. However, when he tried to fix it, he got stuck there, although in the end he managed to free himself. On the other hand, 2 soldiers named Sullivan and Case tried to guard the net they used to catch fish, but unfortunately, they lost all the fish because the wave that hit them was very strong. Fortunately, they survived the incident and the Sentinel was still able to withstand, even though they had just been hit by a 9-meter high wave. The next day, the 4 soldiers began to argue with each other while eating the little remaining food supply. There, Baines seemed angry because Sullivan and Case failed to maintain the net containing fish that they could use to add to the food supply. Hearing this, Sullivan was provoked and began to scold Baines. But fortunately, Hendrik immediately stopped him because emotions cannot solve their problems. Baines then asked why they didn't immediately contact headquarters for help, and Hendrik explained that the telegraph they had could only be used to make reports. In short, after their situation began to calm down, Sullivan returned to his job, which is to make daily reports using the telegraph, where he provided information to headquarters that there were no signs of enemies around there, just like in the previous months. Sullivan then met Hendrik, who was observing the situation outside. There, Hendrik told Sullivan to lower the dancing wind balloon, because this place is a military post, not a night market. Then, as Sullivan looked out to sea unexpectedly, he suddenly saw a ship passing nearby, and Case also confirmed that the ship was detected by their radar. Initially, Sullivan was very happy because he thought that the ship was the one that would pick them up. However, for some reason, Hendrik told Baines to prepare weapons because they didn't know whether the ship was an enemy ship or not. Case then tried to contact the ship, but the ship did not respond. Hendrik finally had to assign Sullivan to check the ship directly using a lifeboat. In short, after Sullivan was near the ship named Aurora, Sullivan began to be confused because no one answered his call, so he decided to enter the ship. Inside the ship, Sullivan found that all the items there were covered in dust. The ship's radio was completely non-functional, and even a lot of food supplies were still left. This made Sullivan wonder what happened there that made the crew disappear and leave all their belongings just like that. Meanwhile, when Hendrik tried to contact Sullivan, Sullivan ignored the call because he was busy eating a delicious beignets. So Hendrik began to worry and immediately returned to the control room. Inside the room, Hendrik planned to attack the ship before the ship reached the Sentinel. But when he asked for one of the cannon keys brought by Case, for some reason initially this made Hendrik remind Case of their protocol until finally Case was forced to hand over his key. Then, after Hendrik managed to start the cannon engine, he tried to contact Sullivan for the last time. Fortunately, Sullivan answered the call, so Hendrik finally canceled the attack and told Sullivan to immediately bring the ship to the Sentinel. When Case asked for his key back, Hendrik said that he would not give his key to Case again as punishment for the previous case of not obeying his orders. In short, after Sullivan arrived at the Sentinel, Hendrik immediately entered the ship to check the situation inside. Meanwhile, when Sullivan met Case, it turned out that they both fell in love. And it seems that this is what made Case willing to refuse Hendrik's orders because he didn't want to lose Sullivan. Then when they were using iodine liquid to clean their bodies, they began to discuss how a ship could drift away without anyone inside. Sullivan then asked Hendrik to report the incident to headquarters. But for some reason, Hendrik considered this to be a common thing, and Sullivan felt something was off when he saw Hendrik carrying both of his keys. After finishing bathing, Hendrik tried to check all the navigation data inside the empty ship, and he tried to match that data with the map they had to find out where and what happened to the ship. Meanwhile, when Sullivan and Case were chatting in the room, Sullivan said that he had previously sent a message to headquarters about the ship they found without Hendrik's knowledge, and they would get an answer the next day. In short, the next day, Hendrik was confused when he saw that Sullivan, Case, and Baines were waiting in front of the telegraph machine. And without realizing it, Baines even mentioned the message Sullivan had sent earlier. Hendrik then said that it was a foolish thing. However, suddenly the telegraph began to sound and send a message from headquarters. Initially, they all panicked about what was in the message, but after they finished translating the message, it turned out that the message they received was the message that Sullivan had previously sent. This indicates that all the messages they sent never reached headquarters, and the messages they received were just messages from Sullivan that he always sent every day. That night, while Hendrik was continuing his investigation, Baines quietly entered the ship and seemed to be planning something, because when Sullivan asked why Baines left his belongings, Baines just replied that he had just gone out to enjoy the fresh air. Not long after that, they both started drinking together, and their Baines told about his family who were waiting for his return. In addition, Baines also mentioned that he might be able to repair the ship they found earlier. This made Sullivan interested in escaping from there, so he tried to tell Case, hoping Case would run away with them. Sullivan said that they could go to the nearest land and start a new life there. But for some reason, Case looked confused. He even worried that Hendrik would not approve of the plan. The next day, Sullivan and Baines secretly began to sneak into the ship to repair the engine, and after tinkering with the engine, they finally managed to start the ship. Unfortunately, when they came out, for some reason Hendrik told them both to dismantle the ship again and use its materials to repair the Sentinel. If they refuse, then Hendrik will not hesitate to use his weapon. Amid the chaos, Case tried to talk to Hendrik, hoping he could persuade him, while Sullivan and Baines planned to fight Hendrik because they didn't want to stay there forever. Shortly after, Hendrik and Case suddenly came to meet them and seemed to have successfully persuaded Hendrik, because Hendrik suddenly said that two of them had to go to headquarters, using the ship to send a report while the other two had to stay at the Sentinel. Hendrik said that he would stay at the Sentinel, but without realizing it, it turned out that Case also planned to stay. This made Sullivan heartbroken because he didn't expect that Case didn't want to go with him. The next day, everyone woke up when they suddenly heard an alarm indicating that a ship was approaching them, so they immediately prepared their cannon to defend the Sentinel. Sullivan then asked if they should check it first, but for some reason this time Hendrik refused and they immediately shot the ship, even though in the end their shot missed. When Case realized that the ship was theirs, he planned to tell Sullivan and Baines, but unfortunately he was too late because Hendrik had already pointed his gun at him. Hendrik then ordered Baines to shoot the ship, but Baines refused, which made Hendrik forced to shoot Baines' ear, and after seeing the incident, Sullivan was forced to shoot his ship. When Hendrik was off guard, Case immediately hit Hendrik's head until he passed out. Then they locked Hendrik in storage room, and Case also took both keys that Hendrik always carried. After the incident, Baines said that he no longer cared about the Sentinel, while Case said that what he said before was just a lie because he wanted Sullivan to leave without thinking about himself. Then when Sullivan tried to feed Hendrik, Hendrik told about his investigation results, which concluded that the ship planned to come to the Sentinel 3 months ago. But for some reason, the ship suddenly turned in another direction and stopped at a point until they found the ship. It seems that one of them betrayed and deliberately gave false information to the ship. Unfortunately, Sullivan didn't believe Hendrik's words and he left Hendrik there. The next day, when Sullivan tried to find Baines without realizing it, Baines, who was influenced by the drink, suddenly started attacking Case, but in the end, Case managed to stop him. Case told Sullivan about it, but it seems he didn't realize that Baines managed to take both keys he carried, which meant that Baines could activate the generator, and he activated the self-destruction system. Sullivan and Case always tried to persuade Baines not to do it, and in the end Baines stopped his actions because he forgot the last password used to activate the generator. There, Baines said that he wanted to kill Hendrik, but Baines also said that Hendrik had escaped. And when Sullivan tried to check it, it turned out that his window was open, which meant that Hendrik deliberately jumped into the sea. When Sullivan saw Hendrik's document, he was surprised because Hendrik had been guarding the Sentinel for a long time. After all, he deliberately extended his contract. Curious, Sullivan tried to see the results of the investigation conducted by Hendrik, and it turned out that Hendrik's words about the ship were true, which indicated that one of them was an investor. Not long after, they saw a pile of garbage that was only a short distance from where they were, because they needed equipment. Case finally planned to check the pile of garbage accompanied by Baines. Before leaving, Baines told about his wife who was pregnant when he was sent to the Sentinel, and until now he still didn't know whether his child was a boy or a girl. He then apologized because he had previously caused a mess, and Sullivan forgave Baines. However, because he couldn't trust him yet, Sullivan gave Hendrik's weapon to Cash just in case Baines planned to hurt him. After the two of them left, Sullivan tried to fish, hoping he could get some fish to add to the food supply. But without realizing it, he found Hendrick's body, died from a gunshot wound to the head. Sullivan then tried to check Bain's documents. However, it seems that Baines was just an ordinary technician, even though he had a history of his bad habit of drinking hard liquor. Sullivan then tried to check his schedule again, and there he found a fact that when their pickup ship arrived, it was Case who was on guard between 12 midnight and 6 in the morning. Not only that, the transmitter in the Sentinel can be removed, which indicates that Case deliberately trapped at the pickup ship so that he could kill everyone there. In short, when Case arrived, he said that Baines deliberately jumped towards the pile of garbage and didn't want to come back. But even though Sullivan knew that Case was lying, he didn't do anything because he was too scared to say it to Case. The next day, when Case woke up, for some reason Sullivan was not there, and when he tried to contact him, Sullivan finally said that he knew about Case, who was a traitor. Sullivan then planned to destroy the Sentinel because he no longer cared about all of this, and Case finally revealed why he deliberately did it. But unfortunately, Sullivan could no longer trust Case. When Sullivan pressed his button, for some reason the radiator didn't explode and only brought up a message as Baines had said before. It seems that Baines deliberately changed the program from the radiator so that no one could use the radiator to fire the cannon or destroy the Sentinel. After the incident, Sullivan and Case began to talk about themselves. And in the end, they both agreed to survive in the Sentinel without caring about which side would win the war. Subscribe to our channel to see more such videos like this. Thanks for watching.